Welcome back to Dolor Factor Live. Our guests are Charmaine Hippolyte of Comfort Bay and Antoinette Joseph of the Division of Human Services and Family Affairs. And just to remind you, I keep telling people about the new stock at Valmore, especially in Vidbutel. They actually have some cement and what else did I say they had? Blocks. See, and I know you wish that you can take part in our guest, and I think you can in the break once you get the answers right. I don't see why you can't participate. You don't think it's fair? No, well, may the best person win. So I'm sure you know what the giveaway is tonight. We've said any flavor of Farron's ice cream of your choice. All you need to do is tell us the family name behind Farron's ice cream, and also if you'd like to win something really great from AF Valmore, just tell us. What are the new products in at their Vidbutel branch? They've got other lots of wonderful things, but this particular question is, what is new, or what are the new products at the Vidbutel branch? And think of houses. And I've said the answers, and if you go on to dolorfactorlive.com or Dolor Factor Live on Facebook TV show, then the questions and hints are there too. Now, before the break, we actually spoke about St. Lucia's aged persons and why so many of them are abused, and that was the question I left it at. I just want to know why there are so many of them. Charmaine, can you enlighten us on that?
Okay. Persons abuse older persons for many reasons. First of all, we consider abuse to be intentional or non-intentional act of neglect. Okay, and persons will do it unknowingly, and some persons will do it deliberately. And we further examine abuse in terms of physical abuse, physical, emotional, sexual, financial, spiritual. All of these come with a number of issues there. But in terms of physical abuse, someone mentioned earlier, you just don't know how to deal with an older person. You can't understand if they were to say, I'm not bathing today. In your mind, you have to take a shower, you have to eat, that sort of thing. So I would imagine this carer being very impatient and would hit on the older person. In terms of sexual abuse, we find persons, in the community who would actually either expose themselves or have intercourse with older persons, against their wishes. And financially, this is what I think St. Lucia really despises. The art of taking away the wealth and monies of older persons and either placing them at a home and never come back to look after them, or depriving them of their monies that they could receive monthly either from human services or from families overseas. Spiritual wise, preventing them from worshipping either on the Sabbath or whenever day that they choose. Sunday, Saturday, whichever one. And all of those we consider to be abuse. But to answer the question, persons do those things for two reasons. I have learned to say for the past few weeks that some persons are just not nice. I'm sorry if I were to say it like that. And the other reason is that persons are really not aware that they are actually committing those acts.
How can someone not be aware that they are abusing someone or hurting someone?
Well, we're used to the physical abuse. So one could safely say, I don't hit on her, but I will call her gage, lead, macaque, and these names, and not realizing that it is emotional abuse. And then others will say, grandma or granddad, you don't need the money, and you would just keep taking it for your own benefit and not realizing.
Come on, if you're doing something like that, you're realizing that you're doing wrong. Don't tell me you're going to be taking from someone, especially, the harmful thing is, people always say, well, if someone is in care, it's the carer that's going to hurt them. But a lot of the time, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's because the family hasn't taken care of them that they actually get to the home. And if there is any opportunity for abuse, it's because the family haven't looked after that person.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'd also like to say something. Sometimes persons are brought to the homes against their wishes. Because persons have worked so hard with their life savings, and sometimes the children have not consented with their parents as to whether they would like to go, and they make that decision on their own, and that is really
you're telling me that the children are bringing their parents to a place that they don't want to be?
Absolutely, it happens.
sometimes.
But
Yeah.
how can the children do that? What, because they're an older person? Haven't they not got rights?
Yes, they do have rights, human rights, but the children cannot cope. Secondly, some of them, I mean, I really have to say what we experience. Some persons will complain that the older persons, they are really annoying them.
They call them troublesome.
Yeah,
I've heard
they're
them say, "Oh, she's
troublesome, and they
He's
stick up
troublesome."
in their feet, and sometimes they make the place smell not so nice, you know, that sort of thing. So the best thing for them is just place them somewhere that they will not see them. But what we are doing right now at Comfort Bay, it's no longer Margaret Tooth. We no longer see being in a home as a bad thing, because Comfort Bay is a really beautiful residential facility. And as part of our admission, we would like the older persons to have an orientation first and foremost. Okay, we are starting off on this very positive note, and we, like Antoinette mentioned, we do not want any person to be admitted against his or her wishes. So come see the place, you know, you will get to know this will be a new home for you, the carers, the other residents. And so when you come to Comfort Bay, you are happy, you're comfortable, and you are glad that you are there.
Okay, so I mean, when is the best? I wouldn't say the best time, but when we think of putting elderly people somewhere else other than the family home, when would you say is the time when it's actually more beneficial for them to be out of the family home?
Actually, there's no time. The ideal place to be, for anyone to be, is in the home. However, you would appreciate that there are circumstances which will prevent persons from, you know, being able to live at home. For instance, if a family is extremely busy, you work overseas and the other children are away, I mean, instead of having the older person to fend on their own, being neglected, then we could understand that they can be in a residential facility. But there are instances where families can actually afford to care for their families, and simply because I am just tired, she's bothering me, he's a nuisance, so get him out. That should not be the reasons, you know, why persons should have their families in residential facilities. So what we are trying to do now is to remove the stigma of you are in a home, therefore the children are bad. There will be acceptable and appropriate reasons why persons can be in a home. But what Antoinette and myself and the division does not like is the fact that they are forced to be there, and you know, their wealth and everything else is taken away or stripped from them, and they come to the home, you could see that they're grieving over what they used to have, the person that they used to be, you know, independence is taken and so on. And what it does, it places my staff at a greater risk of trying to find out or find ways to redo everything else for that older person. The staff now has to learn means and ways to make the older person realize you are still a person and you are still able to help around. You understand? So all in all, the treatment that we give to our older persons, it has very, very negative impact and consequences. And this is what we are trying to advocate. We've been trying to teach the public from June. And like you mentioned in our last email, it should not be a June issue or October when International Day of Older Persons come around. It should be something round the clock, all the time, you know, in your face kind of thing, so that persons become overly sensitive about proper care for older persons.
Okay, well, as we're facing the break, I'm going to leave you with another question, two questions. How can we, I mean, you describe the situation as it is now, but what words of advice would you give other people before they get to become an older person? What are the things that they can do to try and at least safeguard themselves so that that doesn't happen to them? And then also the big question, as we carried on from the last segment, is how can someone recognize the signs of an older person being abused? After the break, we'll read your emails and we'll take your calls. So stay with DBS for Dolor Factor Live.